Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Work at Home Rockstar Podcast. I am talking to the founder of Salt and Light Advisors, and what she does is she works with small to mid-sized businesses to help their employees to understand their roles and expectations. So I'm excited to be rocking out today with Kerri Roberts. Hey, Kerri, you ready to rock?
Hey, yeah, thanks for having me.
Awesome. We always start off on a good note. So tell me a story of success that we can be inspired by.
Yeah, so I was in corporate America for about 20 years and went on my own in 2023. And not only did I go out on my own, I also sold my home and left the city, bought a 140-acre farm in the middle of the country, and completely, I would say, downshifted. But when you start an entrepreneurial journey, you're kind of upshifting in some other
Mm,
ways too. And so traded some stress for a little bit healthier stress, and it's gone really, really well.
wow. Well, that's good. It's not everybody that has some success out of the gate, right?
Right.
Awesome. So now, along with those successes, though, not everything goes as planned. There's some bad notes, and I do like to talk about those because that is usually what keeps people from starting their business in the first place, is that fear of failure. And so, can you tell me something that didn't go as planned and how you recovered from that?
Yeah, a couple of things come to mind. One is from being in corporate and being in larger organizations, I did not understand the entrepreneur or solopreneur or the small business tech stack. So as soon as I got into my business, I was like, oh, I need Microsoft Outlook and what do I need for a CRM? And just started pouring into some larger technologies. And it took me almost no time to realize that's not necessary to
Mhm.
spend that kind of money when you don't have that kind of money coming in. And so, really starting over, even though I had lots of tenure in being a chief operating officer and really felt like I understood business, but entrepreneurship is a completely different beast. And so,
Mm,
really trimming down and understanding how to do things from bare bones and then building as I went was a big learning. And then also just understanding, even though I've worked in HR for 20 years, when do you actually hire employees when you're a tiny, tiny business, when you're just starting out? And some bumps along the road for me.
wow. Okay, those are both awesome things to talk about, really. Like the first one is like the tech stack. Yeah, because I think a lot of people get distracted by all the things that they think they need to buy in order to be a legitimate business, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes some of those things are needed, some of those things are not needed. What did you end up settling on as your initial kind of these are the things that I actually do need to spend money on?
Yeah, one of the biggest things that I spent money on that I needed to was QuickBooks, and I'm not like
Yep.
promoting them or anything, but I needed that
Yeah.
to do to track my expenses and then also to invoice my clients. It's very simple, pretty bare bones. They have a bunch of small plans for small entrepreneurs, and so that was one that was a good investment. And then I've been able to grow with. I've added modules and like the AI pieces and the budgeting as I've grown
Hmm.
over the last 3 years. And then the other one was around email marketing, growing an email list so that way we're not kind of a slave to social media. If social media goes down and that's the only way we're connecting with people. And so really building an email list has been huge for me. And I got a really affordable tool. I personally use Flowdesk. And it's very, very affordable and it sends out beautiful emails every week. It's got kind of the bare bones analytics that I need. I think eventually I'll expand on that tool as I get bigger, but maybe not. I don't need I don't need a HubSpot when I'm this small.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Well, that's really cool. Those are great tools too, by the way. Now, because a lot of people do, spreadsheets or whatever to manage all their finances, and I mean that can be overwhelming even for a nerd like me, right? So
Yeah.
that's really cool that you found those great tools. What was one that you absolutely didn't need then that you thought you might have needed?
Yeah, so when I worked in corporate HR, we did skills assessment on a lot of people. And so I've been certified in a couple of different of those tools. And I thought, well, as soon as I launch my business, I'm going to need those because I'm going to be recommending those to these small clients. And the
Hmm.
reality of it was that was overblown. Like I did not need that. A lot of me marketing toward micro and small and mid-sized businesses, they don't they don't want all of the complications. They many times don't even see the need for HR or really understand HR at all. So for me trying to sell like, oh, you can do predictive index with me, you can do skills survey, all of these things, they're like, right, I don't understand that. And
Mm.
also, I don't even know if I'm paying my people correctly. It was kind of tone deaf. And so I after year two, I did not renew a few of my technology pieces in that way and really made sure that I focused on those bare basics.
Wow, I love that. Awesome. So let's talk a little bit about the jam room and the office and all that stuff. So tell me, what do you see as a successful home office?
Yeah, number one, a dedicated space. I see a lot of people who, pop up on their table or in their, their bar or their kitchen island. And a couple of things like one, I'm 43 years old, so my back needs like a good functional chair. I can't
Yeah,
be sitting on a bar stool all day.
yeah.
And I really need to be able to have my mind recognize like I'm walking into my productive space, my focus space. When I'm out where my dogs are at or, hanging out in the kitchen, I find myself wanting to feed my sourdough starter or maybe start a load of laundry. And so having a dedicated space is big, but I've also found an aesthetically pleasing, organized space is really helpful for me and my brain. So that way I can focus on work and I'm not like distracted by the clutter.
Well, it's funny how when people think about starting a business, the things that they think that they need are like complicated tech stacks, and the things that they think that they don't need is a nice chair, right?
Yeah.
You find like I just find that really interesting that when I speak to a lot of people on this podcast, their home office is like something inspiring to them. They have some sort of self-care routine that's going on.
Mhm.
Actually, do you have a sort of self-care routine that you have?
Yes, I actually just posted a picture of my breakfast this morning and was like, I don't know if I could ever go back to working in an office because at 9:30 every morning I make myself a fabulous breakfast and that's just part of my work from home routine. But when I get up in the morning, I do time blocking on my calendar
Hmm.
so that way it kind of frees me up. That guilt of sitting down at my office and needing to start cranking out emails or projects or whatever, that guilt's removed because I know the first thing I'm going to do is tend to myself and do a home reset. And then I'm going to read my devotional. And then I'm going to move my body. And then I'm going to eat. Then I'm going to sit down at my desk. And I don't come into my office until 10 o'clock in the morning. And I just don't sacrifice that.
Wow. How do you handle clients that might want you outside of those times? Like, how do you handle those boundaries?
That definitely does happen. I mean, there's certainly
Hmm.
times where a client's like, hey, can you hop on a call at 7 a.m. because we're trying to terminate a person today? And usually I say, like, would tomorrow work? Can
Yeah.
we hop on later today? What's the rush? If it's an egregious issue or, like someone's in danger, that's one thing. But so many people feel like everything is an emergency. And I understand that it's stressful. I'm not saying that it's not a stressful situation, but you should probably calm down and take some breaths and let's think through this. Maybe a good night's rest would be helpful in the process. So I usually don't say I'm not available until 10 a.m. I usually ask them why. Can we talk about
Wow.
it later? But I set that expectation from the very beginning of when I'm going to be available to them. One of the big things that I've learned is time does not equal my value. And I know that probably sounds like a little conceptual, but the amount of hours that I work for a client or when I clock in for a client and when I clock out for the day does not equal the value that I bring to them. So
Yeah.
if I start working for them at 10 a.m. versus 7:30 a.m., that doesn't mean that I'm bringing less value.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Especially if you spend the same amount of time, but even if you don't, right? I mean, that's one of the things that I think comes up a fair bit is the hourly versus package type conversation. Like,
Mhm.
and actually, do you tell them how many hours you spend on them or no?
No, my first year in business, I did for sure. The way I do fractional HR leadership. And so
Right.
when I first started, I didn't know how else to do it. And so I was like, okay, we'll either have one call a month, or I will work with your business a half day a week, or I will work with your business one day a week. And that's really how I was marketing it. And what I saw was clients saying essentially like, what will you fill your 8 hours with?
Yeah.
I mean, they weren't saying exactly that, but that was the tone that I was setting, and then they were following.
Yeah.
And so after my first year, I switched everything to project based. So now I have a retainer and then one strategic project a month for them that I do, or one strategic project a month plus all HR escalation, like personnel escalation. And so now those are packaged based and project based and not time based. And I feel better about that. And honestly, I think my clients do too, because they still know what to expect. It's just not anchored by a number of minutes.
Oh, I love that. I love that. How did you make that transition with your clients? Like, did you send them an email? Like, how did it work?
Yeah, I would say, for the clients who were getting the half day or a full day, I had to massage that a little bit because they had this
Hmm.
expectation. But the way I did that was like, let's set up a standing call so you feel comfortable with the progress that's being made. And only one client kept the standing call. Everyone else saw the progress being made. I do end of month project recap emails. And so I'm like, hey, here's what we accomplished. And usually we're in communication, things going back and forth. And so they see what's happening and they were actually relieved by not having that scheduled standing meeting with me anyway.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. The standing meetings, yeah, I mean, everybody's got too many meetings. So I mean, taking a meeting off the table isn't necessarily going to be a bad thing for most clients, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, one client who was just hell bent on having the standing meeting, I said to her regularly, you're paying me a lot for my brain, but you're not allowing me to access it because we're constantly on meetings. And
Hmm.
I had that client for a little over 2 years, and then I graduated her to friend because it just wasn't a very good fit.
Very good wording. You're an HR, right?
Yes.
Oh dear. So that's awesome. And I think that like what I've noticed as well, and even from both sides of it, is that people like to know what they're paying as well. And when you're doing packages, it's very like it's cut and dry. This is what we're paying, and this is what we're paying for it. Whereas this by the hour, now it's like, okay, are you going to charge by the hour? You know, how much is this going to cost? Is this going to balloon up? Like, there's a lot of like
Mhm.
disadvantages to doing the hourly work too, right?
There really is. And even when I was saying, like, okay, I'm doing 1 day a week for you, it was really easy for me to creep out of that time span because
Hmm.
I would want to work. I'd block off my calendar, like Wednesday is this client's day. But things would come up on a Monday or a Thursday. And because of what they were paying me, I felt obligated to take the call. And so even if I would try to pare down the hours on that Wednesday, let's say, I would end up working way more. And so I was blocking on my calendar. Here's, when I would take a call with them. Here's when I would do thought work for them, answer emails, whatever. And I was usually going over. It was usually
Yeah.
not to my benefit. And so I just realized, like, I'm an honest person. I'm not trying to cheat anybody out of anything. They're going to have to trust me. And if they don't, I'm not the right fit.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think also as you get better at what you do, it takes less time to do it. So then you end up reaping the rewards of that.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's so many benefits to doing it in package time. So I love that. Tell me a little bit more about how you get fans though, like how you get people in the door.
Yeah, so my first year, I relied solely on my network. I'd worked in corporate for 20 years, and about every 4 to 5 years, I changed roles, and I've been on several boards. So when I announced that I was going out on my own, I know this isn't the case for everyone, and I don't take that for granted, but I filled my pipeline.
Yeah.
I launched April 1st, and I was full through the end of the year, and I'm grateful for that. But I saw pretty quickly that you're going to exhaust your personal network, even though I've got a pretty good
Yep.
one. Um, I realized like, okay, that was really great, but I'm going to have to focus on email marketing, like I said, being present on social media. I wrote my first book, doing some things in the thought leadership space so that way people could trust me that don't know me personally, because I have a great professional reputation, but you don't really have much of anything with people that you don't know, that like no trust factor from a marketing perspective. And so I really had to get active from a social media and a marketing perspective. And I've never done any paid ads or anything like that, but I really had to reach. And year two, I saw, connections of my network. And now I'm in a place in year three where I'm working with people I've never heard of before.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, and I think that because depending on who you are, some people will start out of the gate and have nothing and start from nothing and build that, and then some people do have a big boom because they've got a good network, but then
Mhm.
eventually it just kind of fizzles out. Now, did you know that that was going to happen, or did it fizzle out and then you went, "Uh-oh."
No, so, and I should say from the very beginning, when I launched my business, the way I launched it was I asked my current employer if I could go 1099 for them. And
Oh.
Here's something that most people that don't have HR experience wouldn't do, but I have a lot of confidence in this because I've been in HR for 20 years and I know the way that I would look at employees versus contractors and the expense associated. And so I went to my employer. It was a startup. They'd been around for 3 years. And I said, hey, I'm seeing some inefficiencies in my department. And I personally think that I could work for you in about half the amount of time. I could bill you hourly. You could remove my employee benefits and all of my perks. Therefore, you'd be paying me probably less than half of what you're paying me right now. And you could be my first client, and I could be a contractor. And I pitched that to them. I was on vacation. I had this call scheduled, and I was shocked. Within 24 hours, they were like, yeah, let's do it. And this was the end of March in 2023. I launched on April 1st while I was still on vacation. Now, unfortunately, because of what I brought to light, they fired my two counterparts because they were like, yeah, we actually don't need it the way that it is, but somebody needed to tell the truth. And working in HR for all of these years, I hate to see inefficiencies and time and money wasted because then trust is low and it's not fulfilling because people are scrutinizing on the role. I could see all of these things happen. They had prematurely hired my department. It was an operations department. And so by me offering that, they kind of saw the light. I took them on as my first client and I had them. They filled about 40 to 45% of all of my time in the first year. And then eventually I said, hey, I'm billing you by the hour. This isn't the structure that I want to have in my business. So I either want to go project based with you or we can part ways. And I'm so grateful that you've been my beginning. And they essentially said, yeah, let's phase out, which was fine with me. So I saw it coming. I saw my need to go from the hourly perspective or the time-based perspective to project-based pretty quickly. I'd say within the first 6 months, I was like, oh, this isn't very fun. I've created a job for myself. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
I've launched my own business, but now I'm just kind of a slave to the time clock. And so I saw it coming and started working toward project-based assignments, within the first couple of months.
Okay. So that leads to another one. Now, when you switch, and I don't know if you're comfortable, talking numbers, maybe you can talk percentages,
I'm
but
totally fine talking numbers.
okay.
I think it's
So
helpful for people to know.
so you're working a job, and now you basically get out of that job and do pretty like similar things for them, but now you're a contractor. What did that do to your hourly rate?
Yeah, so I was making about $300,000 a year for this as an employee, and that's
Right.
not counting what they were putting toward my retirement and my benefits. So, I was making a good clip. I was a VP of operations. And so when I said, okay, I want to do this, I took my hourly rate and divided it in half and said that's what I would bill them hourly. Shouldn't have done that
No.
because really I'm removing benefits and everything
Yep.
else. But I was looking at it as I want to make this so easy for them to say yes.
Yep.
Like I want this to be a no-brainer, huge cost savings. And if you're saving an organization, this company was like 60 million in revenue. If you're saving them $10,000 a year, that might not be appealing to them. But if you're saving them 100,000, 150,000, $200,000 a year, then they're going to recognize that and they're going to be able to make investments in another area. And so I wanted them to be able to say yes. And so I kind of went big on it.
Yeah. Oh,
So
Deb.
I
Yeah.
went from about quarter of a mil base to about $80,000. I don't want to say base because I was billing them hourly. Could I have billed them more and fluffed that? Yeah, because they didn't understand how much time the work took, but I was really trying to build other clients at the same time. And so I treated them fairly. And I upped my hourly rate with them after about 3 months because I was like, hey, you guys, I'm learning some things here. And they followed it. They went along with that. But ultimately, I wish I wouldn't have undercut myself to that level, but I really wanted them to say yes. And the data shows that that's exactly what women do. I mean, men do it too,
Mm.
but that is very, very common for a woman to say, I'm really good at this, but I've never done it in this exact way, so I'll take less money. And shouldn't have done that, lesson learned, and I've priced myself appropriately moving forward.
Good. Well, that's good. Well, because that's what I wanted to kind of address a little bit because I think that people don't see the things that the company is gaining by hiring you as a contractor rather than as an employee. And I think a lot of people will go with probably the same amount of money, which is still bad, right? I mean, if you're
Yeah.
making whatever it is, $50 an hour in a company doing whatever it is, and now you move to a contractor, $50 an hour is not the same anymore. Now you have to pay all your overhead, right?
Yes. Yeah,
So
and
what
luckily for
should
me,
you be
I
charging?
at least your same hourly rate.
Yeah.
I mean, at least. But I would say I was working about half the time for them as I was, and that going from like a quarter of a mil base, my first year, my top line revenue was about 190,000 in my
Wow.
consulting firm. And so I wasn't that far off. I mean, I had spent some money on tech and some things
Hmm.
like that, but I was like, okay, I took a little step back and that's okay. The next year I closed 240. This last year I've closed 275. So I'm moving my way
Yeah.
back up, but probably didn't need to take that same level of step back because when you look at benefits, any benefits, whether they're a 3% match on your retirement that you put in, or medical, or any ancillary, any perks. Like I had several perks. I was traveling all the time. They paid my flights, my hotels, all of that. And then on top of that, the taxes that they have to pay on you, like it is a major cost savings to an organization to go contractor. Now, from a legal perspective, they can't tell you exactly how to do your work or what time to do your work or all of that, or you're actually being treated as an employee, and that's an HR law thing.
Huh.
I knew enough to be able to tell them how to get out of that. But you can't just say, I'm going to do the exact same thing and become a contractor for you. Legally, an employer should not allow you to do that.
Wow. Okay. Interesting. Well, so now talking a little bit about, the financials of it, making sure that you're making as much as you should be making. I'm wondering, did you have any like other than your QuickBooks, like how do you keep track of all that stuff?
Yeah, I was mainly doing it in QuickBooks. I
Yeah.
started out in Excel for my first like 2 months and was like, this is going to be a train wreck. And so I immediately moved into QuickBooks. And the reason for that is I saw pretty quickly that I was going to be making over $150,000. And so I moved from an LLC filing as an LLC to an LLC filing as an S corp because the tax advantages were better. And again, that's just research that I had done. And I had a CPA that I had already done tax planning with before. So I asked her opinion on how I should be setting it up. So in QuickBooks, I then was bringing money into the business to Salt and Light Advisors and then paying myself as an employee, set up a simple IRA for myself. So I'm doing contributions. So there's
Wow.
several different things that I did, and QuickBooks makes that all automated. You can set it up as reoccurring, you can pay your taxes through that and all of that kind of stuff. And so it made it much easier than trying to manage all of that myself.
Wow. How'd you figure all that stuff out?
Well, I've been in business for over 20 years before I started my own business. And so I had a general understanding, and I've also got a real estate investment firm. But really, I came from a farm, a very simple upbringing, and I've just studied it and learned. I've got a business undergrad, I've got an MBA. My husband has his MBA as well. And so we just did the research. And honestly, with AI now, I'm not saying that it'll tell you everything perfectly, but good prompts in is good data out. And so I would learn as much as I possibly could. And then if I had to pay an attorney an hourly rate or, phone a friend through my CPA, I would do that. And I would say, like, here's what I think. Am I on the right track? But
Yeah.
I ask AI all the time, like, what questions should you be asking me to help make good decisions?
Yeah. I use AI quite a bit now too, and especially like because I used to do regular Google, and mainly what would happen is that I would have a conversation with somebody who would say stuff like what you just said, and I'd go, "Oh, that sounds interesting," and then go research it and figure out what they actually meant by that. And now
Yeah.
it's just so much easier with chat that like you can understand all the business structures and decide where you are, and it's great for that kind of stuff. So I think that we're going to see a lot more. It has such a great benefit to the self-employed people who are working from
Mhm.
home. Now you don't need to have an MBA technically to
Yeah.
to be able to know this stuff, right?
Yeah, and I think, did I learn it in my MBA? Not necessarily, but it gave me the confidence to navigate inside of business and kind of remove that fear. I have a good baseline, but so much has changed. And when I was in my MBA program, I was a chief operating officer. So my mindset was different. I was operating inside of a, $85 million company. Now I'm operating inside of a little micro company. And
Mm,
so it all applies differently, and tax law looks different and everything like that. And so I went from a W-2 employee to a K-1 employee before I went to self-employed. And so that progression also helped me to see like, I can do tax planning. I can figure this out. It's not that complicated. I'm mailing a check once a quarter. I just have to stay on top of it, whether it's through calendar reminders in my Outlook inbox or whatever whatever a person's system is to make sure that you're not falling behind on your obligations.
Wow. I'm wondering if we go back to the beginning, what was the reason why you decided you wanted to leave a, $300,000 a year job?
I before I had that role, I was a shareholder in an organization, and that's when I was a K1 employee. And I realized I never had a burning desire to be an entrepreneur. My dad has been an entrepreneur since I was 5, and my perspective of him was you have to sacrifice family, you work all the time, you're not present. And so I had this incorrect perspective. And so that told me, as a mother, that's not something I ever want to do. I want to be a good wife. I want to be a good mom. I'm not going to be an entrepreneur. And what I realized was if you're a driven person, you'll get upside down in other people's businesses just as easy as you will in your own. And I
Yes.
did. I 100% did. I,
Yeah.
I was completely upside down working all of the time. And it took some pain in business for me to realize like I can either fill this pain in somebody else's business where they bestow upon me a 4% increase every year,
Yeah.
or I can go out and do this on my own. And some people don't have the guts to bet on themselves, and some people do. Entrepreneurship isn't for everyone, but if you've even got an inkling of that, it's worth a shot. What's the worst case scenario? You go back. It's not a prison sentence, you can always go back.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. It's such a great perspective. And then back to another thing that we talked about, which is like the packaging stuff instead of the hourly rate. I mean, really, if you're that type of person, you want to get that job done and you want to get it done right. If they don't have enough hours in their hour block or whatever it happens to be that they can't afford, that doesn't look good on you because I mean, you want to deliver exactly what you said you were going to deliver. You want to get a good referral because isn't that going to help you in the long run too, right?
Absolutely. Referrals are everything. And yeah, I can't imagine under delivering for a client. That's
Yeah.
not something that I ever want to do.
Yeah.
But I've got two big Labradors and all of this. I live on this 140 acres. I walk every day. I've got all of this time and space. I meal prep for our dinners. Like, I am so more well balanced and calm. My central nervous system is regulated, and I don't have to feel guilty about taking 2 hours in the middle of the day to do whatever I want to do. I do that all of the time. That's an expectation that I've set for myself.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. For people who are very, very driven, this is definitely a great place to be because now you actually are a little bit more in control of, because I mean, we like to work. It's not that because I think that that's the difference between, the employee gets kind of told what they need to do, and if they don't do it, they get fired. Whereas when you're self-employed, no one's telling you what to do. So if you're not the type that just loves to do it, you might have a hard time, right?
Yeah, if you're an employee who is constantly trying to bring value, or
Hmm.
you fill in the gaps, or you're looking to bring value, or you see process improvement, that those are pretty good indicators that entrepreneurship would look good on you.
Yep. When I was just a quick story, when I was in the corporate, more than 20 years ago, the straw that broke the camel's back in my situation was that I was working in this giant company and they had a bunch of different departments and all the departments were like fighting over who was going to do this work piece. And whatever it was easier to get done and faster to get done if it was the other department that did it. I did it for the other department and I got in trouble. So I was like, this is not where I want to be. I want the best scenario for the company, which is what I delivered, and I got in trouble because it made us look bad. It made them look good. I'm like, this is just so
Yeah, once you get away from the politics, it's like, oh my gosh, I can't. For me, I've had a few clients say like, "What would it take for you to come on board?" I'm like, "You're firstborn. I don't. There's nothing. It's
yeah.
priceless. I don't want to come on board full time.
Hmm.
That's not a good fit for me. You wouldn't even like me there because I would be disruptive. I mean,
Hmm.
like, I'm unemployable. That's just what I've come to learn, and I'm very comfortable with that.
Oh, I love that. So tell me, it's your time for your guest solo. What's exciting in your business? I mean, everything, right?
Everything. Yes, gosh, I'm having a blast. But I would say I'm really taking a look at my language. When you first start a business from a marketing perspective, you're trying to appeal.
Mm,
You're trying to appeal maybe to everybody, maybe to too many people. And I've gotten to where I recognize I've increased my prices this year, which was scary, but then exciting. Nobody even balked at it. I was like, oh gosh, what a blessing. I've
mm.
brought enough value that no one said, I'm out. Everybody was like, okay, yeah, just send it to accounting or whatever. So that part's been fun to really analyze, but changing the language around every way that I show up, whether it's the content that I'm writing through my blog posts, my email marketing, my social media, getting really clear on who I'm trying to reach because I've recognized what happens when I draw in the wrong people. They're either not
Mm.
ready to make the investment or the partnership is difficult. And so that part's really fun. To the refinement part is really, really fun because I know the next layer of clients that I bring in, they're going to be even more well aligned than anybody ever has.
Wow. I love the excitement that you have towards your business. It's so infectious. I love it.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a good time. I mean, when you're aligned. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
if you are completely drained and it takes life away, you need to reevaluate
Yeah,
because
agreed.
this is what it should feel like. This is like using your skills, your gifts, and your abilities. And if that feels draining, like there's something going on that you need to assess and reflect.
Yeah. So how do people get in touch with you?
I'm pretty active on the socials. So my Instagram handle is Kerri M. Roberts and Kerri's Kerri. And LinkedIn, Kerri M. Roberts as well. And I'm accessible on both of those. And then my website's kerrimroberts.com or saltandlightadvisors.com. Both of those have a contact page where people can reach out to me.
Awesome. And who would be the type of person that would get the most out of working with you?
So typically, I'm working with clients anywhere from, let's say, 10 to 60 employees. And usually that's anywhere from 250,000 to 85 million in revenue.
Okay, awesome. So now one more question. Let's talk a little bit about music. Who's your
Yeah.
favorite rock star?
Oh gosh. First of all, I'm not big on TV, but did you watch Post Malone cover Ozzy Osbourne the
I
other night?
didn't. No.
Oh,
When did
you
that
have,
happen? Oh, the
yeah,
Grammys
you have to go
probably.
watch it. Was it the Grammys?
Pff,
It's all over social
one of them.
media. It's all over. It's whatever was 2 nights ago.
Okay.
Oh, I mean, people were crying. Like, of course, Sharon was crying. That was pretty
Uh,
beautiful. I love the Black Crowes,
oh,
as far as rock goes, but I was born in the early 80s, and so I'm that 80s and 90s music girl.
yeah. Me too. Right on. Well, thank you so much for rocking out with me today, Carrie. This has been a ton of fun.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Great. And to the listeners, make sure you go to workathomerockstar.com for more information. We'll see you next time on the Work at Home Rockstar podcast.